trouble getting our press releases out. And so this last time it came out today, you know, and that was, we gave them quite a bit of grief about this. Because, you know, they put bingo and cribbage ahead of us. You know, we don't have room for us on Tuesday's paper or even on Sunday's paper, but they have room for cribbage, bingo. So, you know, we gave them grief about that. But what I want to know is, what way do you mostly get the message? One person said they looked on our website, and we don't post on the website right ahead of time. We just do it after the event when we
No, I
post.
post ahead of time.
You do on the website?
Yeah.
Because Shomek said he looked on the website and didn't see it.
Today's wasn't on there, but
Today's was not on it.
was not on there because of the late, having a problem with the website, but it's
Okay.
usually on there before then, yeah.
So anyway, so we do Facebook, and we do the Time Standard, and we do emails.
Yeah, I give,
How many people, do most people get emails? Is that how, you're all signed up for emails? Okay, so that's the major way that you're hearing about this. So maybe we don't have to worry about trying to get the Time Standard to be helpful. You know, because they've never done a really nice little article about us, you know, where sometimes they'll write an article about some fundraiser thing or some meeting thing that somebody else is doing, but we don't get that kind of coverage. And I sent John Richmond a big long thing that Larry had written that was just gorgeous about a summary of where we're at, saying, if you can't put it in on Sunday's paper, why don't you put it in on Tuesdays? Well, I'll have to talk to the editor about that. Well, it didn't happen, and it was really succinct and good. So, you know, maybe they just got, you know, they can't put stuff in the paper, you know, as readily.
You have them
So
closer?
we're trying to figure it out.
Oh,
whether
wait,
we
you had
keep
two.
trying to fight them to get them to put information about us, especially when it's like significant, like today's. You know, that we, you know, would have been nice to have an article, you know, instead of, you know, because there's a lot of information. Yes.
What about Lost Coast, South Coast?
I don't think they do press releases.
I sent their,
they?
I posted their events happening.
They do events happening.
Yeah, I posted that.
Okay.
It doesn't always go through, but I post on it usually when I get the information.
So we don't know
I also
why.
posted on North Coast Journal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know how they deal with press releases, you know.
The donor trip.
But if y'all getting it through email, that's good information. Yeah.
An airplane pulling the banner work.
Grab everybody's attention.
have a Facebook page.
We have a Facebook page and we have a website.
Okay, put it, remind everybody to like the Facebook page, when you post, it'll come on mine. And then if it's something important, I always repost on my page. Therefore, you're getting it out to more and more people.
Okay.
So just encourage people to like your page. That way, if the luncheons are on there, then if we repost it, encourage people to repost it, it's going out to more and more people.
Everybody hear that? We post next time you see them on Facebook, and we'll get more bang for our buck. Okay, so today Larry's going to present a short kind of introduction, and then we want to hear some brainstorming. I was hoping one of the fishermen that I know was going to come today to talk about how he sees the role of the Coastal Commission in fishing, but he's not showing up. So, but we're trying to start this discussion. Larry's going to present an introduction to that and then conduct the meeting. Thank you, Larry.
First of all, I'm going to pass out the tip jar for here.
Oh, bookkeeping.
The presentation today, I'm going to go quickly through, and then the rest is basically going to be discussion, brainstorming, reply comments, everything from the audience. We do not have a microphone today. Danko usually provides it. This time they did not. It wasn't here, so I'm going to ask you to speak up when you do ask a question. Appreciate give your first name, but do speak. Do stand up and speak loudly so we can make sure it's on the video. I do get a lot of comments in terms of people that can't attend the meetings, but they do go and they do look at the videos we put on the line. So it's important that they hear. I've heard too many times that, you know, I can see what's going on, but I don't hear the questions, I don't hear the responses. So with that, the topic today is local jurisdiction for coastal permits. I'm gonna run through, because I would prefer for you to look, to see for your eyes what the presentation is, rather than rely on me being bigger. So, California has 11 major ports. Inland ports, Port Stockton and West Sacramento. San Francisco Bay ports, Oakland, Redwood City, Richmond, and San Francisco. Ports of Long Beach, Los Angeles. How do you pronounce this?
Port Wainini.
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 Wainini. I'll ask you this again. And then, all by itself, North Coast Port of Port Humboldt Bay. These ports are busy, working ports. They have resolved safety and environmental issues. They have maximized utilization of their facilities and resources. And they provide jobs, good wages, revenues, and recreational opportunities. Except for the Port of Humboldt Bay. It's severely underutilized, no longer a vital part of our economy, and it is the only California port subject to state coastal permit jurisdiction. The inland ports of Stockton and West Sacramento are not subject to state coastal permit jurisdiction. They're out of the coastal zone. San Francisco Bay ports, too, are not subject to the state coastal permit jurisdiction. They are explicitly excluded from the coastal zone for section 30103 of the Coastal Act. South Coast ports along Long Beach, Los Angeles, and
Port Wainini.
San Diego are also not subject to the state coastal permit jurisdiction. They are included in the coastal zone and subject to the Coastal Act, but they have acquired coastal permit jurisdiction by securing certified port master plans as authorized under Chapter 8, Section 30715 of the Coastal Act. That's it. After a port master plan has been certified, the permit authority of the Coastal Commission shall no longer be exercised by the Commission over any new development contained in the certified plan, and shall at that time be delegated to the appropriate governing body. That's the section. It authorizes coastal permit jurisdiction to transfer from the state to the local ports after they adopt and get certified port master plans. After they secure their certified plans, the Coastal Commission delegated to those ports the permitting authority to their port governing bodies. But the Port Humboldt Bay was not provided the same opportunity as the South Port Coast ports.
I wonder, is this going to be
Our port was excluded from the provisions of that section. This is the section. This chapter, Chapter 8, shall govern those portions of the ports of Long Beach, Los Angeles, and San Diego, located within the coastal zone. We are not included. By this exclusion, the state legislature enabled the State Coastal Commission and other state agencies to treat the Port Humboldt Bay differently. I say less favorably than the other ports of the state. The state did not define any compelling state interest or any greater restriction to our port over the other ports. There's simply no reason that that is given, no reason for us to do that. So our premise, the Humboldt Working Group, is that all other California ports have permit jurisdiction over their port development. The Port of Humboldt Bay should too. Let me repeat that. When all other California ports have permit jurisdiction over the port-related development, the Port of Humboldt Bay should too. if our local legislators went to court proactively to correct this and notice I highlighted if, because it is a choice. I think that is a choice that we get to make local, do we want to do this, or do we want to continue to live with the status quo? Let me ask you. And there is a way. The goal, we want local jurisdiction over coastal permits for development related to the Humboldt Bay. The strategy, twofold. First, secure certification, then jurisdiction. We first need to secure from the Coastal Commission a certification of a port master plan for the Port of Humboldt Bay. This first task requires the county to work proactively and collaboratively with the city of Eureka and the Humboldt Bay Harbor District to secure that certified port master plan. We do not have one. We have a lot of plans, but there has not been one common plan adopted collaboratively, that's the wrong word, and certified by the Coastal Commission. With the certified plan, we can then work to secure the permit jurisdiction by utilizing the provisions of that section. We believe it is the county's population's best interest to do this. Why would it not be? To get coastal permit jurisdiction would be a major positive step toward restoring our harbor into a busy port, like all the other major ports of California. That's the section that we're looking at. That's what I'd like to go ahead and start the discussion with. So you're allowed to use one of the questions on the point.
It was basically identifying which of the legislators we're talking about that we need to promote. And you see after I
Huh?
and the Harvard District.
I think I'm just gonna take
Is
this
there
off.
anyone else that
Well, we have to prepare a plan. I'm not talking about several plans, but a plan.
There you go.
Whether we take off from what the Harbor District adopted and get that certified, but we need to get a plan, go to the Coastal Commission, get it certified. Then we need to work with the state legislature in terms of getting it to where we can do something.
So if the plan is established for a jurisdiction, so it would probably be the county.
There you go.
Would it not be the county
You know,
because of private land?
we're not making any proposal. I think there'd have to be a specific designation of a port authority. I think the district's probably in a position to do that, that's all up in the air. But we're not gonna promote either way in terms of our group. What we're saying is that we need to address this, we need to figure that out.
Well, but can I have a question? And that is there a distinction between these Southern California ports that are all where the land is controlled by a single port authority, whereas in Humboldt Bay, we have land controlled by the authority, by the port, but we also have private land within what would be considered the port area. I mean, is there a distinction there?
I believe there is, yes.
And does that add as a complication?
Yeah, and I think that is the reason why we were excluded from that provision, because at that time, and Larry, you might be able to add to this, but back then in the early 70s, the district was being formulated. I don't think it had been formulated when the Coastal Act was actually executed. But I think that because of that scenario, when the Coastal Act was being reviewed and adopted, Humboldt Port, the port wasn't even on their radar screen. So by not being on their radar screen, they specifically just eliminated it. But the other, okay, sorry that that's, I will read this. This is the start of chapter 8. And you see, they talk about this chapter shall govern the ports of California, including the Humboldt Bay Harbor Recreation and Conservation District. The location of the commercial park port districts within the state of California, including the Humboldt Bay Harbor Recreation and Conservation District, are well established, and for many years, coastal planning requires no change in the number of locations. I'm sorry, you're right. Existing ports, including the Humboldt Bay Harbor Recreation and Conservation District, shall be encouraged to be modernized and construct necessary facilities within their boundaries in order to minimize or eliminate the necessity for future dredging and, I'm sorry, I can't, create new ports in new areas. But the reason I point this out is because it is acknowledged in terms of the Port of Humboldt. They recognize the formulation, they just didn't follow through and include us in the references of all the entitlements that the Coastal Act did. So my opinion, my speculation, was an oversight. I've researched, I've never found anything that specifically says Humboldt, the Port of Humboldt Bay is unique, we are concerned for these specific reasons, and we're going to hold restrictions on it. So that was not the case. My belief was that if we bite the bullet, a conversation that I had with the local coastal director, why are we treated so differently in your permit process? The response was, we, being staff, Coastal Commission staff, we're here to protect state interest. When you, Humboldt County, can tell us what you perceive the state interests are by a plan, and we agree on that, we will let you do more of your local controllable destination. So what they're saying is, Humboldt County, you don't have your stuff together. Until you get your stuff together, we're going to take control. They're very simple. And that's the way it was expressed to me. That's the way that I think I'm obligated to express it to the community. And being a planner, regulation is my profession, I agree. I definitely agree that we need to bite the bullet. Go ahead, Bruce.
Third time, but did these Southern California ports have plans established before the Coastal Commission came in to be? In other words, did they just pick up on, you happen to know that? I have no idea.
The Bay Area did,
Yes,
for sure.
the Bay Area did. I want to say that the state
San Francisco.
did, but I can't reference specific.
Yeah,
But my recollection is, yes, they did.
Hey, I was just gonna say that.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I just had a suggestion for the filming. If you repeat the questions, then they could keep the camera on you.
Thank
You
you,
can
I will.
articulate the questions, then people can hear them.
I was just going to say that I think in order to move forward, if it was desired, that it's going to require an amendment to the Coastal Act.
The comment is that this will require an amendment of the Coastal Act. That's why the reference to the legislature, yes. Or, no, I'm sorry, it may not. I have a legal opinion that says no, we are included in that provision. So it's a legal question, but I think that what we look forward to in terms of our plans, we go ahead and assume it's going to require legislative change.
But if you go forward in further sections, you would find that Humboldt Bay is not specifically listed as being governed as a port under this section, and I believe that needs an amendment.
Say it again. Could you say that again?
What I'm saying is that
Why don't you stand up?
there's a section further under this section that governs ports, where it lists the ports that are governed under the Coastal Act as a port, and Humboldt Bay is not included. So I believe that's one of the areas that would require amendment.
That's a section right there.
Yeah, and Humboldt Bay is not included.
It's not included in that section. So when we look at that section, the argument is Humboldt Bay is not included. But when you look at the other sections and all the references to the port, that I referred to that are outlined in yellow, an argument can be defended that we are subject to all of Chapter 8. It's a legal question, but again, I think, and I'll come back, but I think that we need to presume that yes, it does require legislative change. So, go ahead.
How disposed do you think our legislators locally and at the state level, how disposed do you think they are to this idea? Because it seems like if we don't pursue it at that level and invite some of those representatives into these meetings also, then we're kind of just spinning our wheels.
Thank you for bringing that up. 2 years ago, Mary, was it 2 years ago? I can't remember the name. We started the initiative.
When you're talking about where we tried to get the harbor, the city, and the county all working together?
No, that was specifically when the pilot driver who used to attend the meetings started the initiative.
Oh, we were going to put a ballot initiative
There was a
on.
ballot initiative that started. What it was to initiate this process. And it was going to be on the ballot for November 2018. Right? Okay. County council came back and said you can't do that. Don't have the legal authority, so it died. But and that was the question we had. Who is in control here? Is it going to be our board of supervisors, being our local legislative body that has to be behind it to go ahead and pitch it to the state? Or is it the population decision? So, and that's kind of our question. We're bringing up this is a situation we believe that if we, going back to that statement that if our local population believes this is something that we can go ahead and work towards, I believe it can be done. That's the question. Do we, as the population in Humboldt County, believe this is something we want to do? If that's the case, we need to start making sure that our local officials are hearing our message and to follow through. So go ahead. And then, okay, then.
I had just one question. I see Larry's here. Do you have a sense of what the Harbor Commission's feelings are on this? And would you folks be willing to advocate for this project?
I'm pretty familiar with this. I wrote the local coastal plan for the city of Arcata. I've worked on the draft for the city of Eureka, and I've researched this section before. And I think normally what happens is somebody will say, well, that's not ours. And the reality is, if you just read the one sentence right above the chapter that Larry talks about, it says this chapter. What it says, the one sentence is right above it. I've got 5 copies right here if anybody wants to see it. It says, unless specifically specified in somewhere else in this chapter, these 5 ports apply. But if you read right down below, it specifically says the Humboldt Bay Harbor Recreation and Conservation District. Right here it says the ports of the state of California, including Humboldt Bay Harbor Recreation District. So if you were an attorney, you'd say, well, okay, it says, unless it says someplace else that Humboldt Bay isn't included in there, then you're excluded. But right down below, it says Humboldt Bay is a port. And so we start with this premise that, oh, we don't apply at all. The question is really, if we want to do this, then what you would do is you would request an official determination from the California Coastal Commission. We don't shoot ourselves in the foot and say, well, we don't apply, we put our hands up. You say, look, we want to be a port, and we believe we're recognized right here in this section as a port in the state of California. Therefore, we're requesting an official legal determination from the California Coastal Commission. You don't just stop and say, you're not going to move forward. You assert your authority. This is the premise of the California Coastal Act. Our worst enemy is that we do not assert our own authority. We're a government. It says we have all this authority. We start the premise, we proclaim that we have this authority, and that's how you come from a position of power. Because it specifies right there. And now you request an official determination.
So, Larry, we assert our authority plan, right? We go to them and say, we want to develop a plan, and we think we have the authority to do that. Do you agree with us? Because we're going to develop a plan.
I do.
Would you take that approach? Or?
But then what you, and I apologize,
Please.
you know, and I have thought about this a lot. Then the question is what constitutes the port? The first thing you have to do is what constitutes the port. And when you look at Long Beach and San Diego and Wainini and these other ports, you know, it's essentially the area that's below the high tide level. It's not the upland areas, the smoke cookhouse, you know, the areas that are over here. Those aren't areas. When you go to those other ports, what has historically happened, and it's also happened in Humboldt, is they fill the bay. That's how they build these ports, is they still fill the bay. They just did in Long Beach. They built more bay. And so that area of land and the area that's right below here, a portion of that used to be the bay, and it's officially part of the tidelands. And so any upland portions of the bay that used to be the bay that are officially under the State Lands Commission jurisdiction would be covered under the port. And so there's some upland portions that would be covered.
So, I got a question on that. When you said they made it, did they go in and dredge that out to make it part of the bay, extent bay? I mean, what do you mean by that?
Absolutely. That's definitely, and what that section of the code specifically says, see, these ports are so unique and so powerful for the economic development of the whole entire United States. You know how much goes through the port of Long Beach? And if they literally have the authority to fill the bay. And it says, if they have a master plan and it gets approved by the Coastal Commission, they can fill the bay. I'm not advocating for that, but they literally, that's how important this is to the state of California and every place else, these ports.
So I got follow-up questions. When you're talking about making up a master plan for the port, that would be basically come from the harbor district, or would that come from the county?
Well, if we sort of just take one step back and then we say that when the harbor district was formed, the Harbor's Navigation Code, there's basically a section in the code that says, if you go back and you say, well, who has the authority right now? When the Harbor's Navigation and the harbor district was formed, it literally says that there can't be any more land use zoning regulations. The city of Eureka and Humboldt County cannot adopt new land use regulations over the portions that are below the high water level within that has the harbor district's authority. And so what that means is all of the zoning districts are locked in time. And then the assumption was that then the harbor district was going to enact those land use zones. They were going to take over that authority. And so when you put these two state legislative actions together, the Coastal Act, which specifically says the harbor district is a port, and number two, the Harbor's Navigation Code that specifically says once the harbor district was formed, no new land use regulations can be enacted by the jurisdictions, and that authority would be to the harbor district. Those two sections tell you that the intent, in my opinion, tell you that the legislative intent was that the harbor district was going to take over these local coastal plan if the community decided that we wanted to take over that authority from the Coastal Commission. Because otherwise, you're locked in time from 1978 when the harbor district was formed. Even if you had the greatest project that you wanted to do and everybody agreed we wanted to change the zone, those are locked in time at that point. Unless the harbor district enacts zoning regulations and we get it approved through the California Coastal Commission.
Larry, does it have to become a port authority, or does the harbor district, can it function as a port authority separately?
The harbor district is the equivalent of a port authority.
But when you look at the definition of port authority, is that different than the harbor district?
The Harbor and Navigation Code, and what I'm saying here is in generality, is there's some nuances because within the bay, there's portions of the bay that are within the city of Eureka's jurisdiction, and there's portions of the bay that are within the city of Arcata's jurisdiction as far as the State Lands Commission goes. So there's ownership or lease provisions, and then there's regulatory provisions. The regulatory provisions are what I'm talking about, which are the zoning authorities within everything below the high water mark. The city, the Humboldt Bay Harbor District has the authority for those areas, even within the city of Eureka or within the city of Arcadia. That's my opinion. That doesn't mean they can't have their own regulations. It just means that we have regulatory authority for everything below the high water mark. There's a separate thing, which is you have been granted a lease from the state of California for the land underneath that area, and that's what Eureka and Arcata have. They do not have, from the Harbors and Navigation Code, the authorities. They have their own authority because it's still within their jurisdictions, within those boundaries. So it's a little bit complicated. I don't want to go into.
Well, they have the entitlements for use, not the regulatory.
What? Exactly.
They have the entitlement for use, not the regulatory authority.
And so then from the, the first question is, anybody knows me, I always start with, I learned from when I got out of college, I went to the Hupa Reservation. And the number one thing I learned with working for 5 years for the tribe is sovereignty. You stand up for your government rights and you don't let anybody steal your authority. That's the number one thing. You have the authority, you have to assert your authority. If you do not assert your authority, some other government agency is going to do it. That's so when you talk to me, that's the premise that I come from, is that if you want to do something and you're a governmental entity, you tell them, I got the authority to do it and I'm doing it. That's what governments are here for. You'll never hear me stop and say, I'm deferring my authority because I'm going to let these other people regulate me. That's my core premise, and if you're going to start from this premise, in my opinion, what we need to do is to assert our authority through these things and say, we're taking it. We're not asking you, we're taking it. And then you go through the process, and sometimes they'll tell you no, but that's just a philosophical position that I personally follow. A lot of times it gets me in trouble, but that's my position. And so, on the negative side, there's the first question that just really is, can you do it, and what is the process to go through it? But on the other hand, there's negatives that go with these things. And having worked on local coastal plans, right now what you have is the Coastal Act, and if we have a project, we just go through the Coastal Act. We apply to the Coastal Commission, they go through and they apply just what's in the Coastal Act. Those are the rules. If you do a master plan and you submit it to them, they're going to take those, let's say, 120 pages of the Coastal Act, and they'll turn that into 500 pages of specific rules and regulations that you have. And I would guarantee you it will be 10 times more restrictive than what's in the Coastal Act right now. That's just what happens. You'll get specific project approved, but there will be minutia of detail that you can do it as long as you are in compliance with those things. And so sometimes it's just better just to stick with the Coastal Act, because you'll find the Coastal Act is way more liberal in a number of things than if you apply for a master plan and you get it approved, because they'll put so many more restrictions on it. But anyway, I've talked longer than I wanted to.
No, I appreciate it. No, I mean, he says exactly.
Thank you very much, that was hugely educational.
Yes. Another comment? Yes.
Question, might be for Larry, might be for Larry.
That's the way
How does this differ from the local coastal plan?
Well, it'll be, two things. From the state planning law, it would be an element of the county plan. And I will ask, am I right there? Yeah. And because of the local coastal program. But it also has more authority because it is a part of the port's authority's regulatory system at that point. We need to, no, never mind, I won't go there. that answer your question? I'm thinking of another question that.
Let's just, yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna follow up here on with you. The county is the state lead planning agency. It's delegated, correct me if I'm wrong, but
Well, each jurisdiction has their own LCP.
speak up. Each jurisdiction has its own active piece. City of Eureka has a planning jurisdiction within its boundaries. Harbor District has planning jurisdiction within its boundaries. Overlap is still county responsibility in terms of the overall agency. So in terms of resolving conflicts, that may be where you have the interchange of jurisdictions, and that's really the county's responsibility. And that comes into the county plan. That's the way I was always taught. I don't know, we really haven't seen a lot of conflicts, but that's what I understand. Gary?
Apparently, from what I'm hearing, there's really no central authority. There's no center of gravity for moving the harbor and forward. Now, how do they handle that in other areas, like San Francisco, like San Diego, where those are military bases, and they have a heavy military influence?
I believe they resolved it by, first of all, asking the question, coming to an agreement. But I don't think that question's ever been asked here.
What was the question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Asked?
The question is,
So I heard this, that your answer, you haven't asked what question?
who is in control of port development?
There is no center of gravity.
I think you get a lot of claims in terms of we're the jurisdiction. No, we're the jurisdiction. Larry may have a response to that. Go ahead, Becky.
Now, Larry made it sound like it's going to be much more complicated, more work if we went and, asserted our sovereignty. Are there any perks or positives if we went ahead and decided to go with this challenge?
What other input on this? But my personal opinion is, I don't know. No, but I think it's a question that we need to talk about. Going back in terms of, do we want to give up our jurisdiction? This has been a scenario for 40 years. Do we like it? Has it been a problem? Maybe it hasn't been. But my motive here is somebody looked at it. It's a legitimate question that I think the community needs to be asked and the community needs to respond to. It may be, and I don't have a conclusion, but it may be that we don't want to do that. It may be that there's some sort of compromise we can do. My understanding of the plan is it's a plan. It's not a zoning ordinance. A plan is for us citizens to regulate the actions of the legislative body, the discretionary decisions. We, as citizens, are not subject to the general plan. Other zoning, yes, we are. Zoning regulates us. We're only subject to the general plan when the discretion is being made by the county. Subdivision approval, stuff like that. But it's a different ballgame. Plans are general, but the way that the Coastal Commission is applied, plan, zoning, regulations, and the same type of thing. So Larry's absolutely right. Once we open the door, we've got to be willing to live with the consequences.
But you're also talking about, right, the difference between under the water, under the high tide, which is the Harbor Recreation Conservation District, and like all the waterfront and the above, that is still regulated by the Coastal Commission, where we are basically always in kind of often in conflict with what we want to do. Like maybe we want to put Betty's trailers down next to the Hickory, but everybody says, oh, well, that's the Coastal Commission, says you can't do that or something. But I did want to say, I don't know if it helps the dialogue at all, but Long Beach is its own, the board, the elected board of Long Beach are actually the Harbor District also. They wear two hats, kind of like we used to wear two hats with redevelopment. The City Council was also the redevelopment agency. Well, Long Beach, their board is, I think their
city council.
City council is
Correct.
is in charge of the harbor. So that makes it kind of easy because they encompass that, right? There's not like three agencies that all want to have a say about, you want to say about under the tide, coastal land
commission, the lands
The
commission.
lands commission and the leases that they do have a certain control over that. And then the city has control over, or wants to have control over what it does on the waterfront. And the fishermen want to make sure that the waterfront stays fish friendly and, fisherman friendly on a certain part, and they surrender a certain part, but they want to maintain, and they're liking the coastal commission because it protects them to give them that access, because fishing is one of the things that's in the Coastal Act. Tourism, access, fishing,
Shipping.
and shipping, yes, and all that stuff. And we're sort of, it seems like we're floundering.
I lost track. I know, Bruce, you had a question. Gary, you had a question?
Well,
Go ahead.
we are handled differently, and that always makes you uncomfortable when you look at what's going on in the state. The question is, are we adversely affected by that? Is that retarded the growth of the port?
I don't know.
And I don't think we know. I don't think we know. I mean, Larry is implying in his comments that you've got to be careful what you wish for, because you might get it, which is a very rigid plan with a lot of restrictions in it, is what is going to be required to get approved, as opposed to just a general coastal plan now. So I think that primary question needs to be answered. Are we adversely impacted by our situation today? Does this affect port growth and development adversely? And I don't know the answer to that. But
My preference is that we put on the table. Ask and answer the question. Go ahead, Larry. You're right.
I mean, and I'm not sure, my opinion is that the biggest benefit is that once you get a master plan approved, the Coastal Act specifically says it's not appealable to the Coastal Commission. And so when you have projects, what happens right now is there's always the threat of appeal. This is, I don't care if you talk about anything that's in the coastal zone, you can barely have a conversation without somebody saying it's going to get appealed to the Coastal Commission. And so therefore we got to add 15 more things to it, because otherwise the Coastal Commission is going to get appealed to the Coastal Commission. And so once you have a master plan and it's approved, then it's not appealable. They can challenge you and say that you're not abiding by your own plan, but it's not, a citizen cannot appeal it.
yeah, that would be litigation.
You'd be in litigation.
So there's.
I'm sorry.
Well, so I think what would help flesh, right, is what we, I think what needs to be kind of fleshed out is what parcels or what lands would actually be under this jurisdiction of Port Forest. Get specific, and like, does that mean some of Eureka loses some of their jurisdiction, or some of, Arcata, whatever, loses some of that? I mean, I think that kind of needs to be a little more clarified before we can go forward and know whether it's a benefit or not. And those people are going to want to be at the table too.
Well, I think what you're getting to is predictability aspect. I always say you cannot have flexibility and predictability. You have to have a balance here. And this is the problem that our group has been trying to point out the last few years, is in terms of the lack of predictability of what we can and cannot do. And that's what we've been trying to promote. I don't care what direction there is, I just would like to see decisions made in terms of what are the rules of the game. If I'm out there purchasing property, more importantly, if I'm out there advocating for somebody to come in and invest in this community, I want to show that predictability. And that goes back to what we talked about last year in terms of the outfit that wanted to come down here and put the gravel or the extraction facility. Everybody know what I'm talking about? No,
Extraction of what?
they were going to come down and bring the gravel soil material down here and extract gold.
Gold.
What was that?
It was gold, yeah.
They told us. We talked to them. Why did you do that? Their response is, we look for success. We looked at Humboldt County, we listened and everything else like that, what we heard is the failure. We did not see a political will. We were told a lot of things, but when we started looking at it, we could not predict success. That was a very, very important response that I got. Very.
Now, to piggyback on that, nobody's talking about the real elephant in the room. The way I see it, this is strictly my opinion, there are people that would rather see no growth and continue to see empty stores and bankrupt businesses and a declining population than they would see growth come to this area. And I think it's going to kill the county, to be perfectly honest.
Okay, their assertion is that's the general rule, that's the common feeling of the population. Is that true? I think it's a big lie, but the community hasn't responded. So is this a bus to try to get that decision? Where we say, no, that's not true. I don't know. Yes, sir.
Last conversation I had with Brian Snyder was, he's pulling out. He said they don't, this bay would become a ghost bay. He lost the lawsuit. He talked about drones watching our operations when we have log ships in. And yes, it's, there are people that don't want to see anything. As far as he's concerned, this is a dead bay, and he's done. Because he said there, the environmentalists and everybody else, he said, you wait, the chip facility will be the next one. So that's just coming from Ryan, who's been a part of this bay.
So, if I may, and Larry, you might answer my thought here. When you develop a master plan and you have one person, right now we're going through the city, the county, and the city of Arcata to get some, in the Harbor District, to get something approved. If we had a master plan that was renewed every 5 years or whatever the thing was, we could put projects in there that could be approved down already 5 years down the road. But you know, and then 5 years down the road, it's just like doing the city and county plans. You put information stuff in there that's already been approved, and you don't have a chance of it being appealed to the Coastal Commission. So that's where a lot of our problems are, is we don't have a consistency of a plan of what's being done. And I think that my belief would be the Harbor District would take the lead on it, and then maybe committees would work on developing this master plan to become an official port, and then go to the county and say, hey, we want this legislation, either put it on the ballot or from the state to put us in the right wording. You know, that's just where I see it, because what you're saying is very true. I hear it all the time, and I'm going, in what you were saying a minute ago, Gary, we have a lot of NIMBYs in our community. It doesn't want anything in their backyard. But those are the outspoken people. We need more people like us here in the community here that will get up and stand up to some of these committees. Because I listen to the city council meetings and the county meetings, and I'm going, these guys don't know crap about what they're talking about. Because especially when it comes to issues that bother me. I mean, I'm living it, and I don't see them addressing anything, but they're stopping services to people that I care for. Homeless, houseless. Well, we got homeless and houseless. It's not because they don't want homes; they can't afford them. Well, more jobs is going to increase that housing need. Right now, we have Danco's going to build a low-income housing over here in Samoa. Who's that going to be? Is that what we want Samoa to be? Is just nothing but low income? No, we want development.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want just low income. We want growth, and we want it intermixed. We don't want this just low income. We want mixed income so everybody gets along and everybody gets close together.
If you ain't growing, you die.
You're right.
Exactly what's going on.
What I'd like to do is to recall our last luncheon, we had Pat Higgins here, who basically said we need some change in terms of our overall planning and regulatory. This, I believe, is a bus, because we're all getting on questions that I personally believe, we need, the community needs to have answers to. And I think it's time that these questions be asked and answered. My proposal is that I think this is the bus to do that. I don't know what the outcome is. I really have no business in trying to dictate what the outcome's going to be. But I strongly believe that this is a bus that we can use if we want to try to instigate change. That's where I'm going to leave the conversation, so unless somebody has something specifically to add. Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Personally, I think that the Bay is ripe for development. I would like to see us develop it. I'm a little distressed because I'm not part of the Bay environment, so I did not know that there's so many people going around being vocal about not doing any kind of development here. I think we need to find a way to encourage people that would like, to develop. I've been up here 29 years almost, and we've grown by 4,000 people in Eureka, but we need growth, we need jobs. I can tell you everything that's gone away since I moved up here, but we need to let people know that, if you want to see jobs, you want to see growth, you need to be as vocal as the environmentalists.
And what mechanism do they have to do that?
I don't know, Facebook, take city council meetings, and go make your opinion, because, the squeaky wheel. Yeah.
I get greased.
Early bird gets the
Well,
worm.
Larry, what were you thinking about? You were saying that you thought the next meeting was going to be some sort of like get down brass tacks and wrestle this to the ground. But if we don't think we can wrestle it to the ground through the initiative process, and we can't wrestle it to the ground because we can't get everybody on board, what is the next?
My vision was that next meeting we would be having that guy sitting right there, be basically the presentation in terms of what can we do about this. My intent, obviously, kind of the history on this thing, being a little hesitant, a little skeptical, a little uncomfortable about bringing the idea up. But I thought that this meeting is going to give a pretty good indication of whether or not it's discussed. And then I was hoping and thinking that yes, it's going to be, the next step is to get Larry up here to really kind of say exactly what he said. Yes, Bruce?
Well, I would just suggest you invite someone from the city of Eureka and county Plummer along with that.
And economic development.
Here's my proposal. I would ask Larry to go ahead and get the presentation on for the next meeting. Larry, do that.
Well, it's not really on my priority list at this juncture to do a bunch of research. I'm just being realistic and honest to this thing. Because I don't know if, in my mind, I'm focused on solutions. I'm here today, what I'm focused on is, the reality is, we have an RFP out right now to build a brand new multi-purpose dock right down below us. It's due November 1st. That's a real project that I have reporting you today. If somebody wants to come in here tomorrow, meeting in November 1st, and says, look, we want to build a new multi-purpose dock in order to support this offshore wind energy, essentially they're going to build us a master plan. What's going to happen is they're going to design this master plan for us, and it's going to be surrounded around the offshore wind energy project. And then also, if there's some pellet manufacturing companies and those become reality, then we will have a true master plan for multiple different docks up and down the port here within the next couple of months. And so I would rather have this conversation if we get the realization that we have a couple of businesses that really want to come and invest in us, then we can truly have a master plan, and it's not a pipe dream. It's not something that we're thinking about doing. It's something that we have business interests that want to invest in our community if we develop this master plan.
But isn't this akin to like developing a business park, is what you're really talking, is it not?
Very
Much more complex than that, but is it not like coming up with a pre-approved program that people can fit themselves into? That's not, so what you're saying is you don't want to do it that way, you want to wait till the applicant comes in and says, this is what I want to do, and then you build the plan based on that.
What I'm saying is that we're so close at this point. If I didn't have this RFP that was due on November 1st, and we didn't have these other people that we're actively working with, and that we're hoping will come into fruition within the next couple months, if those didn't come in, then I wouldn't be hesitant to develop our own master plan. But the reality is sometimes it's better just to hold tight for a couple of months, let a few things develop, and then have concrete ideas.
And there's no, sorry. Okay. There is no advantage at this point in time, acknowledging that you're up to your ears and alligators, so you haven't got time. There's no advantage basically to bringing in the county and the city to try and integrate more what's going on.
Well, what I would be willing to do, I think it's really just this bigger question of what is the master plan, not just the local coastal plan. But literally, yesterday we had the San Francisco District Colonel's Office and the head of the entire U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, talking about rebuilding the jetties, saying they are putting $9 million for dredging in next year's work plan for the dredging, working with the county board of supervisors within the last month approved the idea of working towards forming a joint powers authority with the Harbor District, the Water Board, the Community Service District, and how are we providing the infrastructure within the Sonoma Peninsula? How are we really going to get that done? And so, if we were going to do a master plan, that's one component of a true, what is our master plan in order to revitalize the port of the whole bay. And really, the whole comprehensive, how can we get together as the county and all of these special districts and cities and truly make this happen, as opposed to just putting all of our eggs into getting a master plan through the local district. And that's really is what the Harbor District Board has been, what we've been concentrating on and working with the County of Humboldt Economic Development, the City of Eureka was at the table yesterday, county planning. That's really is what we're working on together. And we need groups like this, the Eureka Chamber of Commerce and the other agencies, just like you were saying, to, when these projects come forward, the Nordic Aqua Farms, the wind energy, all of these other projects, that this is what we want in a community. It's easy to say we don't want this. It's hard to say, get people together and say, this is what we want to see in our community.
You're right.
I think one of the things that we need to really get clear is why we would do this. What would change, the formula for getting a sample project done if we were to have our own jurisdiction, as opposed to going through the Coastal Commission. What are the problems there? What are the benefits there? Problems, benefits. And then who are the players? Who has to be involved in these changes? And if an outline like that could be developed, I'm not just saying it gets developed like that, but I think that would kind of help flesh out what are we really talking about, and is this really worth pursuing? Because if the benefits don't outweigh the negatives, well, what's the point? But if they do, and we could really have some significant changes, well, then it's worth doing.
Any volunteers to do that work?
Well, I wouldn't know where to start. I mean, I participate, but
Okay, so what I did, I agree with what you're saying. In terms of this small group like that, what do we do? What's our next topic that we want to hear in order to move this forward? And I guess what I'm hearing is that, yes, we would like to go at least to the next level, to kind of determine what you were talking about. So where do we go from here?
Or do you just do what Larry said, say, go to the Coastal Commission, say, we'd like it to be autonomous?
So do we, this group do that? Is that the Board of Supervisors or the Commission is that?
In my opinion, it would be, again, I'm used to hearing no. I don't, to me, that's just a bunch of bullshit, quite frankly. I don't want to hear what all hell says. I don't want to hear what that board says. I want to hear what the California Coastal Commission says. So then what you do is you submit an official determination request, not to the bottom rail, to the Coastal Commission. This is
I kind of like that
We
idea.
want a determination. It's because we stop ourselves is what happened, because we talk to the same people, and I can tell you already what they're gonna say, because we talked to them many times, we already know what they're gonna say. They're gonna say, oh geez, you can't do it.
Would that be,
Yeah, what do you do, put your hand on your head and walk away and, cry? No.
would be
Come on.
would be appropriate for our group to ask the Harbor Commission to do that?
If that's what you choose to do, I mean, I'm happy to bring that up to the board, I
Could
just.
this group do it?
Well, the Harbor District would be the one that would be,
Yes.
if we're saying, it says right here, the Humboldt Bay Harbor Recreation Conservation District. It's not the county park, it's the Coastal Act specifically says, and the navigation code, we are the port. We're the ones that is eligible to do this. And so, again, I'm not saying that I will do it between now and next month, but, because I have other things, priorities that I'm working on.
I had another question for Larry. I've heard that the request for proposals, the deadline you mentioned November 1st, it might be extended to the first of the year. Is that going to happen,
Yeah, that is my, and I'm talking about
The request for proposals just down, 100 yards from here.
for new multi-purpose dock, and some companies asked us to extend the deadline within our RFP, and part of it is if you're going to invest $50 to $100 million, to have a 45-day submission time period, you need an additional time period to analyze it. And so then we're going to put out an extension of that RFP, and we're also going to expand. People ask, we put a window where we would give tours of the facility. They also asked us to expand the window because they're coming from Europe or other parts of the country to take a look at this. And we only gave them a week to say you can tour the facility, and so we're going to open it up a little bit more because my board subcommittee said we want to design this to get really much interest in this to get success. So yes, we are going to extend.
Are you looking at possibilities of having railroad